Well, the word addiction, I mean, man, that just brings up so many thoughts and emotions. I think there's probably very few of us that hear that word that it doesn't hit personal in some way. Got a couple guests with me today, and they're both authors. I'm going to bring in Angela Kennecke and Steve Frey. Angela is an amazing reporter, a journalist in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Angela, let's start with what your story is as we get into what Steve's book is about.
So I'm an investigative reporter at a local television station. And I was actually working on a 3-year long investigation that started in the tiny town of Platte, South Dakota. And a man who lived there had been stealing money through government grants, and nobody knew about it. And when it was discovered, he murdered his entire family and then killed himself. And he had 4 school aged children. It's just something you can imagine would just, it rocked the entire state, but especially this tiny town of Platte, South Dakota. And Steve is from Platte. And Steve has such a tremendous ministry. He is so inspired to help people. And he wanted to help the kids who were suffering from the loss of their classmates in an act they couldn't understand. And I went to go cover that, Steve helping these kids was part of my story. I went to go cover what he was doing, and he'd have a dinner for them and a little ceremony for them. And I can let Steve talk about that. But in the course of doing this, he asked me if I would write his story. And I was kind of in a hurry to get back to the station and get my story on the air. But
Right.
after talking to him, and then I reached back out to him, and the more we talked, I said, yes, I want to write your story. And maybe Steve has his own account of this, the way that we met.
Steve, let's have you jump in. Your book is called "The Day His Heart Stopped Crying." Let's go ahead and start about where did that title come from, and who is his? His when you
Uh,
talk about his heart.
well, I'll tell you real quick. I was a drunk alcoholic living on the streets in Des Moines and Kansas City, eating out of the garbage cans. And I apologize because I get very emotionally involved when I speak.
No apology needed, Steve.
Um, and I found out that I couldn't do it without Jesus Christ. That's the only way out
Amen.
when I went to take my life.
Wow.
And I was out on the lake one day when I said, God, my daughter had just attempted suicide or was going to. And I said, God, I got to know if she's dead or alive. And then I remembered Abraham and Isaac when Abraham put Isaac on the altar and sacrificed his son, was ready to. And I said, God, now I hear you. Now I hear you. I'll put Hannah on the altar. I give her up. I never need to see her again. As long as you promise me you'll take care of her spiritually and physically. I did that. And a fish came out of the water and hit my line. And I jumped up in the boat. I said, that's from you, God. And so I went back to shore. And I said, from now on, at 71 years old, I'll give you everything. I will go throughout the world. I will not retire. I will share Jesus Christ. God wanted me to just give up everything. And so I did. And that's when Angela came to town, and I was so blessed to be able to share with the high school kids after this tragedy. I said, you can't do it on your own. It has to be Jesus. And that's what it's about.
Steve,
I had other authors try to write it, and they came and they said, Steve, I can't capture that. But Angela captured the spiritual things in the book, and that's what it's about.
Steve, what really jumps out to me is the fact that you were on your knees at the lowest point of your life
Oh, yeah.
when Angela came into your life,
Yeah.
and she has an empathetic story. God brought you both together at the exact same time. Angela, would you share about why your heart was so soft to Steve? Perhaps it wouldn't have been had you not walked through what you had.
Well, when I first started writing the book, I just really was interested in Steve's story. And the day his heart stopped crying is that day is when Steve says that his heart stopped crying. We argued a little bit over the title of the
Okay.
book, but he was adamant about that. That was going to
Okay.
be, the title.
Sure.
And I spent about a year getting to know Steve and writing the biography. And during that time, I became very close friends with Steve and his wife, Marie. And I also had a daughter, Emily, who was struggling. And I knew she was struggling. And I was trying to figure out any way to help her, to get her help. And Steve had offered to help in any way he could. And he had been throughout Steve's story. If you get the book and read it, you'll see that he suffered from addiction and he gave up everything in his life. He was living on the streets. He found redemption. He found a peace beyond all understanding. And now he gives back and he would help people get into treatment. He would drive people to the treatment center. He would convince people to go get help. And when I felt very comfortable confiding in him that my daughter was suffering from an addiction issue, I couldn't figure out how to help her, how to get her into help. And they had offered to help in any way they could. But unfortunately and tragically during that time, Emily died from fentanyl poisoning at the age of 21. So it was
So
already
sorry.
after the book was out. Thank you. And Emily had actually collaborated on part of the book. She was an artist and she did a watercolor of the day his heart stopped crying, about that story on the boat with fishing. I have the actual original watercolor here. And I don't know if you can see it
Wow.
with the glare, but this is her work. And
Absolutely beautiful.
yeah, and it is the cover of the book. And on the inside of the jacket of the book, you'll see her name. And it's been something that has meant so much to me to have collaborated with her on the cover and to have had Steve and Marie's kindness and caring throughout this whole entire process of
That's
everything that I've been through.
and the proceeds go to Emily's Hope, to that
Right.
foundation, is that right?
Right. So I started after the loss of my daughter in 2018. I started a charity called Emily's Hope. And we have put 150 people through treatment with our
Mm,
treatment scholarships. We're also developing prevention education for the elementary school level. And we also help people in recovery. So we have a lot that we do. But during all of this, Steve said, I want all the proceeds from the book to go to Emily's Hope. And that's what happens. So every sale,
mm.
100% of the profit goes to Emily's Hope.
100%.
Mhm.
Steve, when someone reads this book, what do you hope that they either feel or think or do?
That they never lose hope. Um, I would have a hard time saying without being emotional, but I was at the low point with some whores and prostitutes. And I hope that people can see that God can reach down and forgive and rebuild everything in their life, no matter what. I've had the blessing of seeing a prostitute on her knees coming to Jesus Christ.
Wow. Wow.
And one of my best friends has been married 5 times. And I had the blessing of leading him to the Lord. So my only goal is that I could take somebody's hand and help them. And Angela is helping me reach that goal for everybody that goes into a treatment center.
It's a beautiful story. Angela, do you have any final words? We're kind of wrapping up already. It goes so fast.
I would say that Steve and I have helped each other. You know, I helped him tell his story, and he's helped me cope with the loss of my daughter and helped with our charity. And it's been such a loving and incredible relationship that I am so blessed, to have in my life.
What a what a powerful interview. Thank you so much for both being so raw and transparent and for making a difference. I know there are people listening and watching right now that can so relate and feel like they're at the very bottom. We want you to really consider purchasing The Day His Heart Stopped Crying, Angela Kennecke and Steve Frey. Where is that available, Angela?
Well, sure, it's available on Amazon. And of course, it's on our website, emilyshope.foundation as well.
Thank you so much both for joining us. Bless you both. And good things ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.